What's up everybody, I'm Jesse Showalter, and in this episode we're going to be taking a look at Adobe XD's new feature called States. It's going to allow us to create interactive components with multiple different states and manage them in a single source of truth. It's going to help us cut down on excessive amounts of artboards to create simple animations between buttons and toggles and switches. It's really easy to use, and it's gonna just blow your mind. Let's dive in, let's get started, let's do it. All right, diving right in, we have a new XD project open, and I have a blank artboard, and I'm gonna start creating my very first component. So to do that, let's just take our rectangle, draw it out. Let's fill it with kind of a nice blue color like that. And why don't we just round the edges a little tiny bit. Let's zoom in so we can see what we're working on. Okay, cool. So far, so good. Got a nice shape there. I'm gonna press T for text, and I'm gonna put some button text in there. I wanna make sure that that is visible. Let's just check and see if for some reason the opacity of that is down. And let's make sure it's center lined, and we'll just line everything up. I'm gonna press Command or Control K to create my first component, and I'm gonna name it button over in my components panel. Now I can drag out other versions of this button, no problem. Now in the past, if I wanted to create a hover state, I would have had to have created a separate component and then switched them, or created a second artboard and then manipulated this one over here so that it had like, I don't know, like the opacity of it was down or something, and I would prototype back and forth for the hover. That's really annoying. You have way too many components with way too many states, and your prototypes just look crazy just to get a single or a simple hover or new state. So that's lame. We want to do something better. If we click on our component, you can see in our component master, not in our component instance, right? But in our component master here, okay, so let's get rid of that instance. We see that we now have access to our default state. That's the original state that all these components are gonna look like when they're drug onto the canvas. Great, let's create a new state. We're gonna hit that plus icon, and we're gonna get an option for a new state or a hover state. You can see the little prototype lightning bolt there that says if we choose hover state, you're immediately gonna get some baked in interactivity. You don't need to hook anything up or link anything up in your prototype, which is super nice. So let's choose that. We're gonna do hover state there, and we're gonna make sure that we're selecting our hover state. We're gonna make some edits to the component. So let's select the shape itself. Why don't we change to kind of a purple color? And why don't we, just to be really dramatic, move our button text like over to the left-hand side or something like that, okay? Now you can see as we click back and forth, you can see the change that's gonna take place. If we hit play and test our prototype, you see we get an immediate interaction right there just over the hover. Now we can go to prototype. We can see that we have a linked hover interaction there, and we can mess with it a little bit if we want. Like we can change this to 0.9 seconds and press play. It's gonna take a lot longer. So we still have control over our components and their states inside of the interactions and all that kind of good stuff. All right, next up, let's try a toggle switch. That's gonna require that we use some of the other states and a little bit more of the prototyping screen. So let's do that. I'm gonna take a rectangle, I'm gonna draw that out like that, and I'm gonna just round the corners really easily. Then I'm gonna take a circle, I'm gonna draw my toggle state inside of it, okay? This thing's a little bit long for my liking for a toggle, but let's do that. So let's fill it with a light gray, and let's take this border way down, something like that, okay? Let's do, let's see, we'll take the border off, I think. Let's zoom in on what we're working on here, and let's just take it right there. We'll add a little bit of shadow inside, maybe a little bit less shadow. Ooh, like that. I like that. Let's just bring our transparency down a little bit, and let's fill it. Actually, let's just keep it white like that. We'll move it over to one side, okay? So, pretty good. We have a kind of standard toggle switch that's built. I could, if I wanted to, go over to my layers. I could group these and call this toggle, okay? Now instead of creating that second component over here, like an on version or an off version of it, right? Let's make a component, Command or Control K. We have toggle, let's go back to our components. So here's our toggle switch. Now we don't want to create this one and call it toggle on or toggle off, just toggle, right? And over in our default state, that we know that that's gonna be our off state. So let's create our on state, a new state called on. And what do we wanna do? We wanna move our toggle to the other side, and we want this background to be filled with, I don't know, like let's do a green color, like nice muted green. Or actually, you know what? Let's match our blue above. Get some consistency there, that's nice. Okay, pretty cool. Okay, you know, I probably would wanna go back in and rework like pieces of this component, but that's good. Let's just shove it right there. And now what we get is, we have a default state and we have the on state, okay? Those might be backwards. I might have had to toggle it the other way, but I'm having a brain fart right now. So let's just try it out. Let's press play and nothing's happening. Obviously, right? We can't click it because our hover is still working on our button, but we didn't give this any sort of interactivity. So we wanna go over to our prototype state, just like that. We're on our default state. Just by tapping the little blue bubble there on the right-hand side, we wanna create like some interactivity. So we want on tap, we wanna auto animate, and we wanna move to the on state. Perfect, okay? Now we go over to our on state, we're gonna do the same thing. Tap, auto animate, back to the default state, and it's at 0.9 seconds. All these animations are really long, but bang, they work just like that. Now we have hovers, now we have toggles. Oh, we have all sorts of good stuff going on. This is amazing, this is awesome. What's so cool about this is that later on, if I want to create, here, let's go back to layers, boom, 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 back to design. If I wanna create another artboard, okay, that's the wrong size. If I wanna create another artboard like this, and let's say this artboard had some different design elements I was working on in it, and I still want a toggle or a button in it, that means I can just drag my toggle on the screen, drag my button out there, and now I can do, let's see, a button that actually prototypes another prototype to this screen, and then this button could prototype back to this screen. We'll just leave it like that. Let's play, right? So we have all of our stuff here. We have our toggles, but when I press the button, bam, we're getting our animations in between the different screens as well, but I'm using the same components. Bow, 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 bow. Amazing. Well, that's it. Those are the very basics of getting started using states inside of Adobe XD. There's a lot more there, but I'll leave that for you to discover. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, make sure you leave a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. I do lots of videos about design and development and walkthroughs just like this one, so maybe stick around. If you have any questions, leave those down in the comments. I'll get back to them as soon as I can. Hope you guys are having an amazing week, designing amazing things, making amazing things, and using states to speed up your workflow. I'll see you in the next one.